Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel, The Spurs Pursuit, speaking everything Tottenham. If you're new to the channel, please give me a like, subscribe. This is my first ever video, so any feedback, any like or subscribe will be much appreciated. As you can tell by the title of the video, this is the 5 positive takeaways from Igor Tudor's second press conference as we head on Sunday into the West London territory to face Fulham at Craven Cottage. And so Igor Tudor yesterday had hosted his second press conference as Spurs manager this afternoon. And having listened to Thomas Frank's speeches for 7 months, it felt very, very refreshing to hear the tune of the Croatians' words. So, starting off, it's not really on a bounce of what we would have hoped for, because obviously we faced Arsenal in the North London derby on Sunday after being absolutely humiliated on home turf after a capitulation in the second half, where it was a string of errors leading to most of the goals. However, we could see that physically and mentally we were absolutely not at it. And I think Tudor summed it up perfectly in his post-match interview, where he said that it was two completely separate worlds, comparing us to our North London rivals. And, you know, he's not wrong. He's been very honest. And I know that a lot of Spurs fans do not like honesty, as was the reason being Thomas Frank. However, this sort of honesty is slightly different. It's not a defeatist mentality. It's a sort of, okay, we are in this position now and we must move. Whereas with Thomas Frank, it felt like this is the position we are in and we will try and move. It was sort of, there was no persuasion about Thomas trying to get us out of the situation. So it's really a breath of fresh air to listen to the voice of Igor Tudor. And so let's get right into it. There's not too much to speak on the Sunday's game. Let's try and move on as fast as possible. So here are 5 positive takeaways. Number 1, the eloquent style of speaking of the 48-year-old Croatian. And as an interim coach, he has a massive, massive job ahead. So as I've already touched upon, I would say there are 2 phrases, or I say 2 phrases because the first one is a word, the second is a phrase. So let's call it connotations. There are 2 connotations that we can take away from the press conferences we've seen of Igor Tudor. Sorry, I don't really want to be mentioning our predecessor too much. Right, the first one, honesty, and the second, the most important, being commanding aura. And I think this is a perfect word or perfect connotation to sum up his presence. And the way it reflects to the fans, the same way it will reflect on the players. And the players need someone to hold on to that will rule with an iron fist, which Igor Tudor is known for. So, interestingly, there are 2 points I want to touch upon in this video. And the first one during this point is the use of the pronouns we. We are in this situation. We need to do this. He used that 38 times during the press conference. Impressive. 38 times. And it's not really a deflection, is it? It's a sort of acceptance of we are in this situation now. Awareness of being in this situation, definitely. And not just that, but it's his use of modal expressions. Must. Have to. They all indicate a sense of action and change, very much needed to untangle Spurs out of a very, very complicated web. And that web being the relegation battle. So, although there have been criticism going on Tudor not having any experience of the Premier League, which some argue is key, very important, and I agree to a certain extent. However, you definitely want your manager to accept the position that he is in and to be aware of the position and how can we get out. Try and find the solutions, and that's proved with the modal verb. So I felt that was very, very impressive. Moving on from that, he used the words tough, serious, change. So these adjectives and verbs, they indicate the willingness and desire to fight the situation with the hand he has been dealt with. And there's no doubt Igor Tudor has had one hand tied behind his back with just 13 players available since the day he's arrived. So with such things, it definitely shows Igor Tudor is here not to mess about. He's here to get his job done. And I really liked the way he mentioned last week when he was asked, are you enjoying your time here? He said, no, I'm not here to enjoy my time here. I'm here to work. And that's been further proven in this press conference with the use of pronouns, with the use of modal verbs, the sense of action. And it definitely reinstalls confidence. If Spurs can get some much needed points, some much needed performances, it starts to inject what the players and fans need, and that's belief and hope and confidence. And with such words, I think it's fantastic that he's chosen to do so. Another thing that our predecessor, not Thomas Frank, but Ange Postecoglou, didn't do very well with journalists and news reporters was his arrogant responses, his demeanor about his quite aggressive style of answering questions. And Igor Tudor has taken a different approach. Just if you remember last week, he decided to greet all the journalists by shaking their hand before starting the press conference. It's a very nice gesture to make. It treats the journalists as human beings, which is quite rare in this day and age. Not to feel sympathy completely with journalists who do ask some very, very, you know, controversial or, putting you in a very bad position as a coach question. So not full sympathy for them, but what does that do? It adds empathy and sympathy for Igor Tudor himself, and that's sort of the way the conference was going. Actually, 3 times Igor Tudor mentioned the word "I agree with you." Okay, not the word, but the phrase "I agree with you" when answering the journalist questions. It adds that sort of friendly interaction, and maybe that softens the blow of when things do get tough. When Igor Tudor will be here. So I think he's taken very, very good approaches when speaking. And one more thing when speaking about his eloquent style, his eloquent demeanor, is the phrase or the expression life and death when speaking about the relegation battle. So not only is it the awareness, it's how do you deal with this situation when you are the head coach. And with his background, with his CV being instant impact, getting teams out of a fight, out of a mess. It's what you want to hear from your coach. And it sounds very dramatic, life and death situations. But that's what it is. It's absolutely devastating for our economic situation at the club. Because let me touch upon it very quickly. If we do end up in a relegation battle and we go down, you cannot imagine how economically devastating that is. Already now, there are being reports coming out from current Tottenham Hotspur sponsors willing to exit not only negotiations, but contracts because of their, skepticism of the current situation Spurs face themselves in. That's if we survive. If we go down, the amount of companies and sponsors that will come out and rip up the contracts, the players that will leave, it will set us back so far. Okay, I believe we won't be in if I can't believe we are actually speaking about in 2026 relegation battles and possibly championship football for Tottenham Hotspur. But if it was the case, Tottenham Hotspur are still able to string revenue from their stadium, whether that will be concerts, boxing events, NFL events. What team in the championship has a go-kart underneath the stadium? So we are still able to produce a lot of money and get back into the Premier League, which is where Tottenham Hotspur ultimately do belong. And many people will argue about that, but this is where we do belong. We belong in the top half, the top 6 of the Premier League. However, if we were to go down, that would set us back a decade. And I'm not over exaggerating. It would set us back a decade. Not only you're dealing with the economic aspect of sponsors and companies, you're also dealing with the economic aspect of players leaving for funny fees. So Igor Tudor does reinstall this sort of confidence, which is very positive to say the least. Now, number 2, and that's clearing up, should I say, not catching up, clearing up the Van der Ven situation. Now, it's not really a point I want to spend too long speaking about because if you watch the video closely, you do realize there's not much to speak about. However, I'm speaking about the video where during the North London derby, a video recorded by a fan seated behind Igor Tudor was it captures Tudor seemingly telling Van der Ven to push up the field, with the Spurs current captain ignoring such commands, and Tudor was visibly erratic. If you look closely, it's not as deep as it sounds, and that was proven true by Igor Tudor, who played it down. He stated that if you watch carefully now, you see that I don't speak with him because after the one advice, I said to him, "Come closer," and he came closer. And then he further stated, "He's a fantastic guy, a very good professional, and he would never do these things." Now, two things might be true about Van der Ven. His recent performances have been very poor to his standard. And secondly, he might be unhappy and willing to leave North London in the summer. Absolutely could be true. However, to the second point, who out of our current players and staff is happy in North London at Tottenham Hotspur? Almost none. So I think fans are looking too much into it. I would say Van der Ven was very, very disappointing with the lead role he should have. But I think fans are looking too much into it, and it's very good that Igor Tudor is able to cover it up. He's not going into this into the deep backing of players like Thomas Frank was, which is also good because it shows that Igor Tudor respects himself and he respects the position he's in. Going back to the first point of the eloquent speaking. Now, number 3, and finally something positive that Spurs fans can hold on to, and that is positive team news. So, as was already touched upon in a post-match interview and some reports leaked during the week, Igor Tudor confirmed it. Pedro Porro and Kevin Danso are finally back in team training and ready and available for selection on Sunday. Now, having a third natural centre-back and the best progressive passer in the team is a huge boost for Spurs' chances of winning a football game. And also, two things must be mentioned. Archie Gray being played in his 4th different position. And diving deeper into these positions, you can look at right wing back, right back, that's a number 2. And in the midfield, number 6, number 8, number 10, all played under Thomas Frank. So it's very difficult for the 19-year-old teenager. He's struggling. He really is. Right wing back is not his role. He's a very good passer, which we definitely need in the middle. Could that be an option? Potentially. And secondly, João Palhinha's fight is amazing. We love to see it as fans, especially in the dogfight that we're in currently. However, a third natural centre-back is crucial for the system that Igor Tudor will be playing, and he will not be switching to a back 4. I do not believe that. He will be sticking with the 5-3-2, mainly the 5-3-2 because he's got Kolo Muani, who he knows very well, and Dominic Solanke available, and that's where you need to get your goals from to survive in a relegation battle. So a lot of fans have been very, critical of Radu Dragushin, but I will say two things about Radu Dragushin. First of all, he was our best player in the first half. Yes, second half, he was arguably the worst player on the field, leading to 2 big mistakes that led to goals. However, he is the most familiar with this formation. He played it in Juventus academies, where Igor Tudor has managed twice. And he's also played it at Genoa, also winning centre-back of the year, by the way, or centre-back of the season, if I'm not wrong. So, yes, criticism is deserved. He looks like whenever he touches the ball, it's a hot potato. However, he's the most experienced in this role, and we cannot look at playing João Palhinha in that centre-back role because João Palhinha was more exposed than Radu Dragushin. Let's say that much. One funny thing from the conference was when Igor Tudor was asked by a reporter when is Destiny Udogie and Dejan Kulusevski coming back, and he just said, "I don't know." And there was just a silence, maybe a 3-4 second pause of silence, which is kind of funny with the topic of our medical department and our medical issues, our ongoing injury crisis. It's just that one phrase response, "I don't know," and just a straight face. And he does sort of look like the reality has hit him hard round the face. It's proper slapped him. But there were some indications, some positive ones, indicating maybe Destiny Doggy could be back mid-March, which is very positive because that left-hand side of Jed Spence is where we struggle to progress the ball forward, with Jed Spence being a natural right-footed player. Playing at that left wing back position, it's absolutely horrific because he's like a magnet. Is in the middle of the field, attracting Jed Spence there, and it kills off most of our progressive play down the left-hand side. And Matisse Tel looked much better coming on in that position for the final 20 minutes, and Jed Spence looked much better in his natural right wing back position. So that is the position we most definitely need to be solving. Is Sousa ready to be thrown in? There were no questions asked about that, so we'll have to wait and see. Well, not necessarily about this press conference, but there have been comments made by Tudor himself, claiming the doctors and Dejan is feeling positive. Of course, Tudor knows him from his time at Juventus. Graham Potter also came out yesterday claiming there have been some positive steps and he hopes to have him available by the end of March. So could we see Dan Kulusevski appear early April? Hopefully. It's 4 weeks' time and we could see Dan Kulusevski, and that would be absolutely crucial for us because I don't believe we'll be out of a relegation battle next month. I really don't see that happening. Number 4, sorry for me rambling on. No excuses, just hard work. That's the 4th point about Igor Tudor. So something Tudor has done fantastically in comparison to his predecessor, the F word, very similar to my surname, is not deflecting from the tricky situations Spurs find themselves in. He openly speaks about the players as well and their awareness of the situation, as well as the poor form the calendar has shown. We haven't won a single Premier League game this calendar year. We haven't. And again, he quickly reinstated that the need to make the fast change. So one thing I will touch upon about the players as well is fans have grown skeptical of players' dedication and commitment, not just their low confidence, but their dedication and commitment to them accepting we are in a relegation battle. Are the players not feeling they're too big to be in a relegation battle? They're too big to be put in such conversations in comparison to West Ham and Nottingham Forest? Possibly. But what needs to be said about Igor Tudor is he does hint positively about things around him. Even after the North London derby, he claimed that he's seen the quality of the players, but they have the bad habits. Again, it shows that he believes in the players. He believes they're able to change, to turn around. So I'd say that was another very good point that he makes, and I think that he's nailing these conferences to the needed standard. And of course, the bar was very low because Thomas Frank's boring, and we must say it was very boring the way he spoke. He spoke a lot of nonsense. He spoke a lot of words going in circles, and you don't want to hear that when there's no action. And that brings me on to point number 5. Igor Tudor, twice at the end of his conference, said, "Less we speak, better it is." So it's all focused on the daily work in the training, to climb up the table, to work on performance, to work on all things. So less we speak, better it is. And that is fantastic because what does that show? It doesn't show that he's come here to speak. It's come to show that he's come here to work. And it does reinstall confidence, maybe slightly. I know a lot of fans are not on board yet. I get that. I completely understand. Why should we? Why should we be on board when you look at Tudor's first conference and then you look at the performance in the North London derby? There's nothing to spark confidence into the fans. However, if we are able to see a change in performances, a change in results, listening to what he's saying, fans will quickly start to turn. And I think this is very important. It's very key to take care of right now for Tudor is mainly things that are not related to press conferences or post-match interviews. It's things that he's doing on the training ground that we cannot see. And there was a 5-minute video released by Tottenham Hotspur of the training. And there was some criticism of it. I'd say that is not the word that fans should be using right now, negative connotations with the video, because I thought that the training drills used by Igor Tudor and his dominant speeches during the training were very, very good. I saw a lot of running drills, and we've been very critical of our players, claiming, that they seem washed after 60 minutes. That they look like, even if we look at North London derby, where Tottenham had played one game, Arsenal had played three, and then you go into North London derby and we are absolutely physically outplayed as well, not just psychologically. So does Tudor look at that and go, right, these players are unfit? Maybe, but that's good news because we're still able to change, even with the little amount of players, the 13, 14 available right now. So nothing but focus on climbing up the table for Tottenham Hotspur. There are massive weeks ahead. We've got two cup finals to play, one on Sunday, one on Thursday. The good thing is we don't have to travel a lot. Two players are coming back into the team. With Pedro Porro, yes, defensively, he's not very good. However, if you remember, he came from Sporting Lisbon as playing as a right wing back. You've got Kevin Danso as a natural centre back, as a fighter. Fulham have conceded a lot of goals this season from set pieces. They actually conceded 2 goals in their last loss at home at Craven Cottage, 2-1 against Everton. 2 crosses. Could we use that to our advantage? And what Tudor said fantastically, how I will sum up this video, is he mentioned, no, that we won't be trying to win beautifully. We'll be playing ugly. And that sort of small team mentality, it sounds very bad, but it's the absolute pivotal. Oh, I was looking for the word pinnacle of expressions right now that we need as fans to cling on to. So overall, I'm very happy with the way Tudor is speaking. Mainly to my last point, less speaking, the better. Because if we see another poor performance on Sunday, followed up by another poor performance on Thursday, there starts to creep in that sense of, could we see another interim coach take control by the end of the season? And let's hope not. Let's hope and get behind the team on Sunday. Massive game on Sundays, 2 p.m. kickoff, 2 back-to-back losses at Fulham. However, some positive news to end the video. The last games, we went 9 unbeaten, the last loss being in 2007-8 season at Craven Cottage. So before these consecutive losses, 3 in total, 2 in the Premier League, 1 in the Carabao Cup by Ange Postecoglou. Before that, we've had a very positive record here. So let's try and get back on good terms. Let's try and make that gap wider and safer. Thank you for watching. One more time, if you could, like and subscribe to my channel. Leave me any feedback, any comment on what you liked, what you didn't like. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying for the whole video. My name is Martin Frank, the Spurs Pursuit, and I hopefully will see you next week. Thank you. Goodbye.